Welcome. In this session, we are going to take a deep dive into the purpose of the self awareness practices that you are invited to learn. I am not here to convince you of anything. If you are here ready to take responsibility for the life that you're creating, this message will naturally inspire your willingness to embody this work. Now, people come to develop self awareness for all sorts of reasons, but generally, they fall into two different camps. Those who are suffering and want change in their life, you may be able to relate to that right now. And those who are called to freedom, to truth. So let's start with suffering, right? The most common path. And I can relate to that in my own experience. Because most people aren't willing to go inward and look at themselves to explore the change they are looking for unless they're experiencing some form of suffering. And that can take a lot of suffering to be sincere and willing to change. For some of you, suffering might sound like a strong word, especially if you're here to address relationship issues or sabotaging behavior, addictions, and what have you. When I use the word suffering, it essentially points to not feeling okay inside. You may be able to relate to that. Just not feeling okay inside. And in that, there are feelings of anxiety, inner conflict, overwhelm, boredom, feeling triggered, angry, exhausted, feelings of self-doubt, shame, or insecurity, not feeling in alignment. And these feelings lead to compensatory behaviors, caring about what other people think, essentially not feeling authentic in your life. In fact, not feeling okay inside leads to inauthenticity. And inauthenticity leads to a whole range of problems in our relationships, work, finances, our daily habits, our communication, also stress-related health issues. You will notice cycles of behavior and reactive patterns that aren't serving you, like addictions, distractions, perfectionism, sabotage, procrastination, all the usual suspects, leaving you feeling blocked in taking action or trapped in unfulfilling circumstances. And all of this lands in a low vibrational state of guilt, shame, resentment, apathy, fear. And these vibrational states of being create a host of personality traits and temperaments that dig a bigger hole that we eventually have to climb out of. And now our attempt to solve these problems externally by controlling the external world around us, trying to be a good person, trying to fix ourselves through therapies and interventions or creating goals, trying to win the invisible game of life. And when the temporary relief of external distractions no longer satisfies our need to feel better, we are left with this invitation to turn inward, to take full responsibility and uncover the patterns within us that shape our experience of life. And you may feel like you've already done the work, but the truth is you are not done with the work until the work is done with you. This is a lifelong journey because the constant that we're working with is change, and mastery with inner work lies in our ability to flow with that change, learning how to let go, learning how to surrender, the purpose of which to uncover an unshakable, an unmovable truth of who we are beyond all that which comes and goes. As I said, there's also the call to freedom. Some of you are here to discover self-awareness solely driven by an innate curiosity about yourself, about life. You may be called to the deeper truths. Well, what is this life all about? Who am I? What are we here for? You might carry the conviction that this life is meant for freedom and refuse to live and die wondering what it was like to be truly, authentically yourself in the full expression of your gifts and talents and purpose, to find meaning. So while suffering and the desire for change are the most common catalyst to go inward, both pain and the call to freedom lead to the same place, lead to the same realization. We are the co-creators of our reality. If we are suffering, it's because something inside us is resisting reality, resisting change, which is to say, resisting letting go of a person we believe ourselves to be, who is reflecting a past we have yet to let go of. And this is how we create our reality. Okay, let's take a deep dive into the process of how we create our realities, step by step. Most people are experiencing a reality created by their subconscious mind. And within the subconscious mind, you have thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. And these thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions create our perspective, create the perspective we have about ourselves and reality. And then we project this perspective onto whatever is happening in our lives. So it's a lens in which we see, filter, relate everything through. So where does this perspective come from? Well, it is largely shaped by our conditioning, our childhood conditioning, our experiences and influences in our lives. And it tells us a story about ourselves and about reality. We adopt ideas about what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is acceptable and unacceptable, what is normal. Now, these thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions, they don't just stay up here in the head. They are experienced as feelings and emotions in our bodies. Our perspectives are not just mental, they are physical and embodied, and that's the whole body-mind connection. You can hear it in voice tone. You can see it in posture. It all shows up as symptoms throughout the body. There's a whole place to look there. And because our perspectives are experienced in this tangible physical world, right, in our bodies, which most people consider to be real, it doesn't feel like a perspective. Our perspectives actually feel like truth. Now, this is the really important part. How we feel on a regular basis strongly influences the person we believe ourselves to be. Since our perception of self is largely shaped by experience, and experience is filtered through emotions and feelings, these become the lens through which we define who we unconsciously believe ourselves to be. What you feel becomes who you are. How you feel creates your personality creates your personal reality. The shape you take inside as the person, otherwise known as the false self, the ego, the lower self, the perceived self, the shadow self, the small I, it holds a vibration and a frequency. Now, you're probably aware that everything in this universe is energy reflecting itself in physical form. So you can only imagine then that what you attract and manifest in your life, your reality, is a reflection of the frequency, the feeling states you have become personally identified with. Further to this, naturally what follows from our feeling states and emanating this vibration out of us are choices, our actions, our behaviors. These are the proof in the pudding of how we're really feeling inside. So therefore, if you feel insecure in certain situations in life, your choices, actions, and behavior will reflect that insecurity, reaffirming the belief that there's something wrong with you, which later down the line can cause issues in relationships. This behavior is showing up. Then the desire is to go, what is causing this behavior? Because trying to fix the behavior doesn't fix the core issue. The issue is happening at a deeper level. Your choices, actions, and behavior, they're symptoms of what's really going on inside. Another example, if you're feeling inadequate in certain areas of your life, your choices, actions, and behavior will reflect inadequacy, reaffirming the belief that you're not enough, resulting in feelings of frustration and shame. If a girl grew up, for for example, with a parent who wanted a boy, not a girl. They may carry deep-seated beliefs about not being enough. At work, this may show up as an inability to speak up in meetings, not feeling that they're valued. In relationships, she may overcompensate by constantly trying to prove her worth to gain approval. When she faces rejection or criticism, it only reinforces her belief that she isn't good enough, leading to frustration and shame. Unconsciously, she continues making these choices, validating this false narrative, unaware that the cycle will only break when she begins to recognize her inherent worth, her intrinsic worth, beyond external validation, the validation she didn't get, say, from her father. If you feel unconsciously trapped in a scarcity mindset, your choices, actions, and behavior will create scarcity in your experience. There's not enough time. My partner doesn't give me enough attention. Money's hard to come by. All of this generating feelings of fear and powerlessness. This happens unconsciously, and it proves our beliefs to be true. We love to prove our beliefs to be true. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the real trap lies in identification. Because we all experience a range of emotional states influenced by different circumstances and situations, but they only become problems when we mistake these feelings and the voice in our head for who we are. The more we experience a particular emotional state, the more familiar it becomes. And over time, it solidifies into our sense of identity. It feels like me. And the voice in my head sounds like me. This unconscious identity trap, believing who we are is defined by how we feel, keeps us enslaved to this endless pursuit of controlling the external world to regulate our internal state. In other words, if reality doesn't align with the feelings that reinforce my identity, I'm compelled to either fight against reality to protect this sense of self, or resist and deny it to preserve the illusion of who I believe myself to be. Fighting and denying reality is exhausting. You lose every single time. It's impossible. And it's ultimately insane. And it is the most normal human trait that you'll see: fighting against reality, arguing against reality. This is at the core of human suffering. This is at the core of the human predicament. So again, the core of human suffering lies in this belief: if I can feel a certain way, then I'll be okay. If I can avoid certain feelings, then I'll be okay. This is the core delusion for everybody. And it becomes particularly activated when we have unhealed wounds, unresolved trauma, when parts of ourselves have been suppressed or distorted due to childhood conditioning and negative past experiences. The unhealed self becomes desperate to acquire things and experiences that promise a sense of feeling okay inside. It's not the car and the house and the partner and success and the status or the attention that we actually seek. It's the feeling we believe those things are going to give us. The unconscious belief that I'll be okay when I feel wanted, loved, successful, productive, special, and satisfied is slavery, because the feelings don't last. It's always on to the next thing that will give me that feeling again. It's like a drug. There's no satisfying this delusion. It's an endless pit of needs. It's no wonder so many people feel so exhausted and frustrated. So take a look at this diagram around craving and aversion around feelings that really paints the picture clearly. So as you can see here in the center, we've got craving and aversion. This is the craving, chasing a feeling. So a lot of the time in our life is chasing feelings. If you really take a look at the habits going on and what the mind is saying and the energy behind what we're doing. It's like, wow, there is this, I'm trying to chase a feeling. Equally, on the other side, is in avoiding uncomfortable feelings, taking a lot of action, doing a lot of compensating to avoid uncomfortable feelings. So suffering sits between avoiding uncomfortable feelings and chasing feelings. So this craving and aversion cycle becomes a game of manipulating the external reality, seeking situations, people, or achievements that will generate pleasurable emotions, while resisting anything that triggers discomfort. But this is often backwards. Most uncomfortable experiences contain the key to real happiness, while the things that we cling to for comfort and pleasure often become the very prisons that keep us stuck. Now, the unconscious pursuit to control the external reality to feel a certain way inside draws us into the victim, perpetrator, rescuer cycle. You're going to learn a lot about this. And it begins when reality doesn't make us feel the way we want it to, when we feel out of control, vulnerable, rejected, humiliated, powerless, unsatisfied, hurt, when our false sense of self, the ego, is challenged by change. The unconscious tendency is to blame, judge, and criticize the people and circumstances around us that trigger the discomfort, while simultaneously denying and suppressing or resisting the uncomfortable feelings themselves. Unwilling to see that the real source of suffering is not the external world, but our attachment to feelings we have become identified with. We first enter the cycle as the victim, because the moment that life doesn't show up the way that we want, we feel powerless, we feel wrong, threatened, or deprived of these feelings that we're seeking, the victim is activated. Why is this happening to me? The discomfort that we experience gets turned into a personal story. And that's when the perpetrator is activated. When the world and reality doesn't comply with our expectations, frustration builds. We become selfish and reactive. But perpetration is innocent. It is an innocent attempt to feel okay inside by reacting through anger, withdrawal, manipulation, control, trying to force reality into submission, all just to make us feel a certain way. But of course, this is only creating more discomfort. And that's where the rescuer comes into play. The rescuer attempts to escape this discomfort. We seek relief through distractions, relationships, substances, work, success, therapies, anything at all. We look for solutions that will give us the feeling we want and remove the feelings we don't, leading to temporary relief, instant gratification, and often addictions. The rescuer tries to fix the world out there rather than letting go of what's going on in here that's actually causing the problems in the first place. Imagine a woman deeply invested in her relationships, and she finds herself caught in the victim perpetrator rescuer cycle because she's feeling emotionally neglected by her partner. When he seems distant or doesn't express love in the way she expects, she feels unappreciated, unwanted, unloved, insecure, triggering the victim mindset. Why doesn't he love me the way I need? Am I not good enough? Her discomfort turns into a personal story of rejection, reinforcing her fear that she's unworthy of love. As frustration builds, she'll unconsciously shift into the perpetrator role. Feeling wronged, she reacts by criticizing him, or not being emotionally available, or withdrawing sexually. All of this to make him feel the pain she's feeling. In the perpetrator role, it's I want to make you feel the way I'm feeling. And we are very good at pressing each other's buttons to make sure that happens. But all of these behaviors don't bring them closer. It creates a greater distance. And this confirms her feelings of not being loved. Unable to bear the emotional turmoil, she enters the rescuer phase. She might overexert herself to fix the relationship, bending over backwards to gain attention. She might seek external validation, right? Gossiping with friends, immersing herself in work, or distracting herself with social media and self help books and content that offers the illusion of control. Some days she convinces herself that if she just loved harder, he will change. Other days, she considers leaving, hoping a new relationship will finally make her feel the way that she's longing for. But none of this works because the real issue was never about him. The real issue was about the fact that she was trying to gain her sense of self through him. True freedom comes when she stops seeking external validation for internal security and instead meets her discomfort with self awareness, breaking the cycle by recognizing that love, security, and self worth are not things to be chased, but to be first realized within and then reflected outside. Now, the vibration of the victim perpetrator rescuer cycle is survival mode, where fear, insecurity, judgment, overwhelm, self doubt, and compensations thrive. They thrive in this environment. The powerless, lower self, like the ego, is in charge, unconsciously hallucinating that it has control while denying the internal responsibility of letting go of the true causes of suffering, which is how we perceive ourselves and reality. And although it is our responsibility, we are not taught this at school, at home, in religion, and in even most spiritual traditions. Most of us have no idea how to break this cycle of resistance and identification. So don't assume you should have known this. If you've had that thought, I should have known this by now. I've ruined so much in my life. I've wasted so much time. You are likely proving a belief that you're not enough and that there's something wrong with you. And that is not what we're here for. This is a celebration. This is the moment to break the cycle, to break free from the habit of suffering, craving, and aversion, of suffering resistance to change, and falling into reactive patterns of the victim perpetrator rescuer cycle that prevents us from healing these wounds and trauma and conditioning of the past. Now, coming out of all of this, the suffering, the craving and aversion, the emotional triggers, the victim perpetrator rescuer cycle comes down to two steps. One, discover who you truly are. You must discover who you are beyond thought, belief, perception, the feeling states, the voice in your head, all of this, otherwise known as the ego state, because you cannot solve a problem at the same level it was created. That is at the same level it was created. You have to go beyond and discover who you are. Two, become consciously aware of the beliefs, perspectives, and feeling states that are dictating your choices, actions, and behavior that are not serving you, and learn how to disidentify with them, because that's all that's happening. I've got thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions, a perspective. I'm feeling it as emotions. The emotional state, that experiential emotional state, now over time is feeling like who I am. So I'm now identified with it. So you have to become aware of these things. Oh, actually, that's not me. None of this is me. This process is a removal process. It's not an adding process. You're not adding things to yourself to improve. You're actually disidentifying with the things that aren't you. In another way to put this, it's like if you were driving in your car and the windscreen was covered with grime. All you're having to do is wipe off the windscreen so you can see clearly. There was nothing wrong with the windscreen. There's no cracks in it. It's in perfect condition. You are in perfect condition. The issue is what's on the windscreen and knowing how to remove it. Fortunately, this process is simple. It is very direct, very practical. But I did not say it is easy. Facing your shadow can be challenging. What if I uncover aspects of myself that I don't like? What does true change mean? What if true change means losing parts of my current life, my identity, my relationships? As your baseline vibration lifts and rises, which is natural to happen with self-awareness, what happens to the life that has been built around the vibration I currently am in? Of course, all of this is the fear of the unknown. Who am I without my wounds? Without my limitations imposed by past conditioning and painful experiences? Will I expose myself again to more pain because I'm free and not protecting myself? And beyond that, there's a concern of how your transformation might impact those around you. Will you hurt your loved ones? Will they accept the new you? Will your relationship shift? All of these fears are very natural to have. But let's look at it this way. Imagine what your relationships would look like when you are more open, when you are safe ground, when you are stable, when you are free in your communication, when you're trusting in the process, when you have the capacity to discern what's right and wrong for you, not based in conditioning, when you are honest, clear, spontaneous, and intrinsically grateful, when you know how to handle triggering situations in a way that only creates more trust, more respect, and deeper connection, when you are free of feeling jealous and clingy and have that need to be right and need to control, I could go on. But essentially, when you know how to remove what gets in the way of love, what's your relationship going to look like? Is that worth the risk of this change? And what does your life look like when you are curious, when you are enthusiastic, spontaneous, connected, courageous, radically responsible, not held back by procrastination and sabotage and perfectionism, when life is no longer happening to you, right? Because that's the victim narrative, but happening for you, or truer still, happening in you. What does your life look like when fear and scarcity and feelings of inadequacy and insecurity are not driving your behavior? When unresolved wounds and trauma and childhood conditioning are not steering your choices and actions? When you can see clearly, no longer clouded by stories of hurt and loss and unresolved needs? What is the quality of your life when it is devoted to giving of yourself in a way that brings joy and fulfillment as a complete loop, free from sacrificing, free from expectations and transactional love? Tune into that. Tune into what it means to live naturally, to be authentic, to not be in the way of love, which is to say, not in the way of yourself. Is that worth the risk of letting go of the causes of suffering? Is that worth facing the unknown that comes with embracing change? Remember, the victim is the one chasing and avoiding feelings, desperate, needy, attached. It is experiencing the reflection of disempowerment and scarcity. It becomes the abuser, the perpetrator, and then the rescuer who lives in guilt and shame and denial. This is the path of disrespect, of resentment, of disease. The one who takes the invitation for self-awareness is the one walking the path of authenticity and resonance, embodying what it truly means to be free, which only can happen within. It is what it truly means to treat ourselves and each other well. And that's why we're here. This is an invitation for freedom through self-awareness. Now we're going to look at 3 self-awareness practices that transform the root cause of suffering to create the life and relationships your heart truly resonates with. This is just a brief overview before we go deep into the actual coursework itself, just so that you understand how everything you've learned so far relates to the practices that you're going to go on with. So the first one is self-recognition. Self-recognition, recognizing me. This is a daily practice that involves 10 to 20 minutes of seated meditation where you are guided to consciously recognize who you are beyond thought, belief, perception, those feeling states, and body sensations. It is the direct experience that your intrinsic nature, who you are fundamentally, is joy, peace, truth, love, and not as an intellectual understanding, as a lived, embodied experience. This is absolutely critical. This is how you lift your vibration naturally and learn to experience all feelings and emotions without craving and aversion. It is the practice of acclimatizing yourself to peace out of the victim, perpetrator, rescuer cycles. Because we're addicted to the emotions of these cycles. It's an addiction. So we have to acclimatize ourselves to be okay with not needing those experiences, those feelings. We also have self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is the practice of identifying and questioning the unconscious thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions that create your reality, because you cannot change what you're not aware of. And we are not trying to change these unconscious patterns by force or replacing them with positive beliefs and perspectives. We are simply realizing that they are not who we are, thereby giving ourselves the opportunity to create a completely different reality through conscious choice. This practice exercises the power of your attention and discernment. You are shining the light into the darkness of your unconscious mind to discover the truth. When you see the causes of suffering clearly, only then do you have the choice to continue to invest in those causes of suffering or to let them go, to let them dissolve in your presence. And then we have self-regulation. Self-regulation involves practices that switch off the survival mode, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, to prepare the body-mind for self-inquiry and for self-recognition, and to establish the habit of softening and relaxing in the face of challenging situations in life. So this is how we address the root causes of suffering and transform our reality. And you don't have to dig up your past to heal, because it's all here with you now. Each authentic step you take in life will bring up everything that you're holding on to. Okay, let's do a quick recap. Your reality is created by your unconscious thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. These shape how you feel. Repeated feeling states shape your identity, which holds a vibration and frequency. Your identity, the person you feel yourself to be, dictates your actions, behaviors, and choices, and this reinforces your reality. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Suffering and the desire for freedom exist to wake you up from this cycle. Suffering isn't a mistake. It's an invitation to change, to evolve, and remember who you truly are. Self-awareness is the key. And don't mistake it as mental work. It is awareness work. By learning where to place your attention, you activate the undeniable realization that you cannot be what you are aware of. And this is how we heal. Self-awareness practices support you to disidentify from past wounds, from traumas, from limiting childhood conditioning. that trap you in recreating the past over and over and over again. You are about to discover that you're not your story. You're not your beliefs. You're not your feelings. Who you are is pure, unshakable presence. And by going inward, you realize, I forgot my true place, only to remember this again. This world, this whole strange experience is a gift of remembrance. My story is a gift of remembrance. All the challenges, the heartache, the pain, they're all gifts walking us home to an unshakable peace. This is what it means to make wise use of this mystery that we're living through. So I invite you to take this journey together.